Hi, my name is Raven.
My name is Alicia.
My name is Charlie.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Daniel, and we're here today to tell you why you need to be more environmentally sustainable. So, Mother Nature is what we live in, and this planet is a beautiful planet. But if we do not start to take care of it, things can start to fall apart easily. As seen on the screen, I don't know if you know what this is, but this is a clock in New York City that's a countdown timer that shows what will happen in 7 years if the current trace that we're on for our carbon footprint emission, which is the greenhouse gases that are released into the environment, if it's not, if things are not changed at this current pace, we're going to fall victim to extreme heat waves, fires, droughts, and limited water availability. So we're here today to convince you and show you ways that each and every one of us can take a part in making our environment a better place.
It is up to us to make a difference. Some people believe that there's nothing that can be done, but it can be done if we all come together to do our part. We only have one beautiful earth, and it is up to our generation to make a difference and to save it.
What I will be talking about today are the effects of single-use plastic. How it all began. The first thing that was ever invented that was similar to plastic was something called synthetic polymer, which according to Courtney Lindwall is a human-made product made by nothing found in nature. It is purely made out of chemicals. According to the Science History Institute, synthetic polymer was used to replace ivory, which is found in elephants, for a $10,000 reward. Another time where single-use plastic usage ended up expanding was during World War II. During that time, people had to conserve their resources, and plastic was a very cheap and efficient thing to use during that time. It increased plastic intake by 300%. People were very positive and uplifted by the invention of plastic because it was so cheap and it was so efficient to use. However, it wasn't as great as it all seemed. Plastic debris was first observed in our oceans in the 1960s. Throwaway culture. Throwaway culture means that people prioritize convenience over durability and consideration for the long-term effect that it can have. According to the Plastic Ocean Foundation, humans have produced 8.3 billion tons of plastic since the 1950s, and it is predicted to rise around 34 billion tons by 2050. If people do not take into consideration the effect of single-use plastic, then our numbers will continue to grow and our planet will continue to suffer. 91% of plastic is not recycled, and plastic doesn't even break down. They just break up into smaller and smaller pieces. So plastic doesn't even decompose into the ground. Plastic has minimal benefits. A plastic water bottle or a plastic bag has a working life of around 15 minutes. People don't think about how when they're drinking their water bottle and they throw it away, they don't realize how many other people do that as well and how much it really does build up. According to NRDC, the process of producing bottled water requires around 6 times as much water per bottle as there is in the container. We are wasting valuable resources that we are limited on for plastic usage that has no positive effect for this earth who gives us water. Humans are also producing over 300 million tons of plastic each year, and 50% of that is single-use plastic. Now, Charlie will talk about waste.
Have you ever thought about how much waste that you and your family produce? On average, one person creates about 4.5 pounds of trash each day. After a while, that adds up to be a lot. So this is why that waste and waste management has become such an issue in recent years. In the US, we are actually almost leading in how much waste we produce. Americans make up roughly only 5% of the world's population, but we generate about 40% of the world's total waste. Also, the average college student produces about 640 pounds of solid waste a year, including roughly 500 disposable cups and 320 pounds of paper. And each American throws out roughly 1,200 pounds of organic garbage that we could repurpose into compost that could go back into the earth. Also, household product packaging represents about 65% of the household trash that we produce. Also, according to the survey that our group conducted, 94.4% of people believe that waste has become a huge problem. Just one example of how waste has become a huge problem is with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or as it was more commonly known, Trash Island. So what is it? It's a large island that's made entirely out of trash from the US and then different Asian countries. According to a 3-year study published in 2018 by Scientific Reports Friday, the mass known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is 1.6 million square kilometers inside and up to 16 times bigger than previous estimates. That makes it more than double the size of Texas and 3 times the size of the entire country of France. That's pretty big. And it is also growing rapidly faster than scientists expected. Additionally, it's now saying that it's growing rapidly faster than expected, but it's also growing at an alarming rate to scientists. However, there are many ways that we can reduce waste, such as switching to more sustainable options in our everyday life. One main thing we can do is reduce the amount of product packaging that we go through and that we use. And so many places, like food places, many like grocery stores, they're like moving to like provide more packaging that's more sustainable and something that can be composted or recycled. And even JMU is making steps to be more sustainable. And one example of this is with JMU's carabiner system, as seen on the screen. And the JMU carabiner system is the like to-go container that the university provides that you can get, and you can take it to many different dining halls on campus, and you can have your food put in that, and then you can wash it and just reuse it. Overall, the issue of waste has become a huge issue with the rise in excessive waste pollution. It is very important for us to reconsider the way that we view our waste habits because they are contributing to such things like Trash Island. There are many ways we can do this by rethinking our packaging uses. If we become more aware of our bad habits and to start to make little changes in our everyday life, we can stop pollution like Trash Island, and we can make our world a better place for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you. And now on to Raven.
Before viewing this presentation, we asked you guys if you recycled. 65% of the people that replied said, yes, I do recycle, and the rest said no. Our goal is to have a 100% participation rate in recycling. According to Britannica.com, recycling can be defined as the reuse or remaking of waste into a new product. So what exactly can be recycled? Paper, glass bottles and jars, cardboard, and milk jugs or juice jugs can be recycled, but many people do not realize that there are some things that can't be recycled. According to netwaste.org, takeout coffee cups, bubble wrap, plastic bags, garden waste, and medical waste cannot be recycled. It is important to limit the amount of non-recyclable items used, but if you do have to use them, make sure you throw them away properly and do not litter. There are many reasons as to why recycling is important. The two basic ones is it reduces greenhouse gases and it reduces pollution. But many people do not realize it is also important for the economy. Recycling is a $200 billion industry in the United States. That's a lot of money. But it also conserves fresh water. 46% of plastics can float around and drift on the ocean for years before it concentrates into the ocean. That means there are so many plastics floating around right now as we speak, just because someone didn't recycle or they littered. There are a lot of effects of not recycling. The garbage can pile up, for example, in dumps or landfills. There is so much garbage. Obviously, when you don't recycle, more greenhouse gases are emitted into the air. And then also there are no more fossil fuels or a limited amount of fossil fuels available, for example, like coal and gas. Now to move on with statistics. According to comparecamp.com, more than 2 million tons of waste are produced all around the world every year. That's a lot of waste that people are not recycling. We asked you guys if you thought recycling is important. 100% of you guys said yes, but still not every one of you is recycling. When asked if you are likely to recycle in the future, 72% of you guys said you are most likely going to recycle, and the rest said sometimes. Although 72% is a high number, we would like it to have 100%. This is our beautiful world, and we don't have much time to save it. Recycling is easy and very helpful, and it's now time to step up and help because it is up to us. Recycling can happen in your home, or you can take it to the dump or your local recycling place. But you could always just reuse items or make them into something else in your own home. Either way, it's very important to save the world.
So what is the carbon footprint? The carbon footprint is literally the footprint that each and every single person leaves on this world from the CO2 emission that they release into the world that ranges all the way from electricity, transportation, the foods you eat. It's all the combination of all the entire emission that we leave. So if we, according to Jennifer Haston from the Washington Post, if the global greenhouse gas emissions need to drop by 55 total percent by 2030 to make it so we do not suffer from global warming. And as I talked on earlier in the introduction, we have exactly 7 years, 101 days, 17 hours, 29 minutes, and 22 seconds currently speaking until Earth's carbon budget is depleted. And if that happens, our country and world is going to be suffering from extreme natural disasters that are going to be irreversible, and the place that we're going to be living in is just going to be a terrible place. So what can we do to fix this? According to Ellie and Zali from the New York Times, over 40 countries, including India, China, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, still provide subsidies for fossil fuel consumption, which total around $320 billion. That means that we're putting in $320 billion into making the environment a worse place. And so we're going to come up with ways to become more efficient. And it doesn't take just these big companies to make a difference. Even though they do have a lot more power, the individuals make a big difference too. As seen in this chart here, transportation is now the top source for greenhouse gas emissions, whether it's airplanes, cars, metros. There's going to be a lot of greenhouse gases that are emitted into the world, but it's all about the way that we handle it. One round trip flight from New York to Europe or San Francisco creates a warming effect equivalent to 2 to 3 tons of carbon dioxide per person. So each flight that we take, we don't realize that we are actually making our carbon footprint much bigger. And if we have to end up taking a flight, we have to find other ways to lower our carbon footprint because of how much we just escalated it from the flight. Additionally, going carless for a year could save about 2.6 tons of carbon dioxide. So even though I know everyone likes to drive their own car, carpool with your friends, take a walk, or go for a bike ride instead of having to drive everywhere you go, and you can actually make a big difference. Another thing that is not as talked about as these other aspects is the transportation of the food that you eat. If you're eating foods that are imported from other countries, that's going to require a lot of carbon emission rate because they're bringing them in on boats and trains, which is coming in for a lot of emissions. So try your best to eat locally produced foods, even grow your own food. Try not to stock up on a lot of meat and stuff because that's what's taking a lot of transportation and stuff. So yeah.
So I will be talking about alternatives to emission of greenhouse gas. The first alternative is solar energy. Things like solar energy are really important. Wind energy is another example, but solar energy is the most important because we have an unlimited amount of it as we get the energy from the sun. And also, it releases no greenhouse gas, which is important because our planet can only take so much more before the effects are irreversible. Another alternative would be electric cars. The US nearly used 9 billion barrels of petroleum last year, and two-thirds of it was for transportation. So, electric cars are really important in reducing the greenhouse gas and the carbon footprint that gets emitted into our environment. As you can see by the picture, that is a Tesla, and brands like Tesla um, are on the rise selling electric cars, which means that in the near future they will be cheap, just as cheap as regular cars, if not cheaper, which should make you think, why would I not get one to save the planet that you live on? The last alternative is more sustainable eating habits. Um, sl- Slaughterhouses are in full effect in America due to the demand that Americans have for food, but slaughterhouses are unregulated, which means that they produce a ridiculous amount of greenhouse gas. They're responsible for methane and carbon dioxide input into our environment. And the United States alone has 32 slaughterhouses responsible for dumping 555 million of pollutants into waterways as well. And a British journalist, Jenny Kleeman, actually had an idea of more sustainable eating habits, which would be um, growing vegan meat in a lab using genetic scientific innovation. But since that is still over the horizon, she suggested that a good solution that you could do right now would be cutting down your meat intake to, instead of almost every day, if not every day, for Americans, to a couple times a week, and treat our raise our kids to think and treat meat as a delicacy of sorts, because we can't just waste as much as we think we can.
So, in conclusion, we've shown to you today why is it important to take care of this environment and the steps that we can take forward to make it a better environment as well. It doesn't matter if you are a individual with not a lot of power and you feel that you're just a common person in this world, or if a range all the way from a person that's a common individual to a leader of an organization or the president of the United States. Each and every single one of us has the possibilities to make this environment change for the better. And as we've shown you why, it's essential that we take action now and solutions are implemented in today's society. Whether it's cutting off your power when you're not home, taking shorter showers, switching to electric cars, recycling, all the ways that we've essentially talked about to make this place a better environment. We're going to have to continue to do that moving forward in the future if we want to see this beautiful planet that we have as pictured right here. All right. Thank you for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation.